Good afternoon. This is a public hearing for the proposal to renew the interim emergency housing ordinance. It is 3 o'clock. I am Carolita Mejia, the chair of the board. To my right is Vice Chair Ty Menser. To my left is Commissioner Gary Edwards. Joining us in the boardroom is County Manager Romeo Chavez, as well as Clerk of the Board Jamie Caldwell, Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell joining us via Zoom, as well as Leah Davis, who will be presenting background on this matter. The purpose of this public hearing is to accept and consider public testimony on the proposed renewal of the Thurston County Ordinance 15792, which was adopted originally June 25th, 2019. The ordinance has been previously renewed 4 times and previously amended twice. This is a hybrid public hearing. Those wishing to testify have joined in person, by Zoom, emailed comment, or mailed in comment. If you wish to testify, please visit the Thurston County homepage online and select announcements of public hearings on the left-hand side. The information to join this public hearing remotely has been posted there. If you do not wish to testify but would like to listen and follow along, please watch the live stream through the Thurston County YouTube channel to help us manage attendance. Staff Leah Davis will provide information on this topic. The board will then hear public testimony, beginning with the people testifying in person in this room and then moving to testimony from people joining via Zoom. You will have 4 minutes to testify. Time may not be given to another person. When you are called on, please state your name and address for the record, and the clerk of the board will review the timer. So, the public hearing is now open. Leah Davis will now present background information of the proposal, written comments submitted, and any additional information requested by the board.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Leah Davis with Community Planning. This public hearing is to accept and consider public testimony on the proposed renewal of the interim emergency housing ordinance. The renewal will apply to the rural county and the urban growth areas of Lacey, Tumwater, and Olympia. This public hearing is not to consider any current or future permit application for a homeless encampment. And as a land use regulatory action, it does not include any screening regulations for potential residents, nor is there any funding attached to this action. The public hearing and decision by the board are only for the regulatory language that would allow the director to waive some requirements related to permitting. To date, there have been no encampment permits issued, so no land use regulations have been waived. So first, I'll give a brief background of the ordinance. The interim emergency housing ordinance number 15792 was first adopted by the board on June 25th, 2019, after the Board of Health declared homelessness a countywide public health crisis. June 9th of 2020, the board renewed the interim regulations under Ordinance 15902. It was amended and renewed on December 9th, 2020 with Ordinance 15948, renewed as amended on June 9th, 2021 with Ordinance 16026, and renewed on December 9th, 2021 under Ordinance 16093. Under the Growth Management Act, renewal of interim ordinances is effective for 6 months. If the ordinance is renewed today, it will remain valid until December 9th, 2022, by which time staff hopes to have the permanent ordinance ready for public hearing. Following the public hearing today, the board has the option to renew the interim regulations or let them expire. An action is included on the agenda if the board wishes to renew the ordinance after this public hearing. So now some details about the ordinance. Under the interim ordinance, and only with an emergency resolution by the board, the director of CPED may waive certain requirements. A waiver by the director is allowed for a 6-month period, but can be extended beyond 6 months if the board holds a public hearing and finds that a public health crisis in the form of homelessness continues to exist. Following is a list of requirements that can be waived at the request of a sponsoring agency during permit review. Limitations on size, maximum number of residents, parking standards, distance from a bus stop, right-of-way limitations, visual separation from other uses, keeping a log of residents, requiring verifiable ID, having a security tent, allowing visitors, maintaining a numbering system, and requiring liability insurance. Also, the prohibition of the use of heating and cooking appliances within recreational vehicles can be waived. The standards that are allowed to be waived are generally not related to public health and safety. The director does not have the option to waive the following regulations: the requirement for sanitary portable toilets, standards requiring structures to conform to building codes, fire safety requirements, requirement of the host to provide a code of conduct, requirement of encampment residents to sign an agreement to abide by the code of conduct, requirement of the sponsoring agency to self-police and self-manage, and the director cannot waive the prohibition of alcohol, drugs, fighting, abuse, littering, or disruption of neighbors. In other words, standards that may directly affect public health and safety cannot be waived. It's important to be clear that the renewal of this ordinance does not do the following. It does not outright eliminate any code requirements. It merely offers the director the option to waive specific requirements at the request of a sponsoring agency. And it does not establish a camp in the rural county or urban growth areas. And here are the details of public noticing. On April 28th, the community planning webpage was updated with the public hearing information. Legal notice of this hearing was published in the Olympian April 29th, and a press release was issued May 18th for this public hearing. As of noon today, there has been one comment submitted to staff, and it was in favor of the interim ordinance. And that concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Commissioner Edwards, we'll start with you.
Leah, you said this does not create any homeless camps in the unincorporated area, but it does not prohibit creation of a homeless camp in the unincorporated area, does it?
That's correct. The code allows for homeless encampments to be reviewed through the regular permitting process. And all this does is, under this emergency resolution, allow some waivers at the request of a sponsoring agency.
And also, there's no requirement of any type of residency that is involved in this ordinance. Is that right?
That's correct. It's a land use regulation, so we don't go into that when we do land use regulation.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Menser? And I don't have any questions as well. Sorry, my microphone. Okay, with that, we'll move into public testimony, and we have one person signed up, Mr. John Pettit.
My name's John Pettit. I live on Rich Road, and this is one of the multiple times I've come and talked about this particular ordinance, temporary, emergency, whatever you want to call it. The important part here to first of all is recognize 3 years. This would be like coming to the pot of 3 years. In that time frame, you've never had a single homeless encampment created via this ordinance. Not one. You know, usually if you find something doesn't work, you stop, you reform it, you completely redo what you need to do to make something valuable. But in its current structure, it's clear. This is nothing more than a mere, oh, we care, but you don't care enough to create an ordinance that actually is effective and can be useful. I mean, we're going to have an ordinance here, which once again, you can't have alcohol, you can't, or drugs or things. Well, you might not be aware of this, but a large portion of the people that are homeless consume alcohol, some use drugs. I'm not against it. You've heard me admit openly, I have some homeless people that come and stay at the ranch for extended times to make sure they're not living on the streets in Olympia. But the concept that you're going to try to get somebody that's going to have to spend tens of thousands of dollars a month, probably, to be able to have a homeless encampment rules out any probability that one will ever exist. Now, I mentioned before, perhaps what you want to do if you want to care about homeless people and help them stay off the street, maybe you'll open it up with some type of emergency ordinance that would allow private property owners to allow one unit to come and stay on their property without violating county code. Plug in, charge $300 a month or something to that person. Create an issue that individuals in the community can help other people in the community. Not all homeless people are bad. In fact, a whole lot of them are just really great people. They just need a hand up. But with this type of ordinance, you are virtually condemning people to the option of parking along Ensign Road or Pattison next to the atrium. You're condemning them because you're not actually providing anything that can work. Now, I realize sometimes there's some nonprofits out there that would like to charge great big fees to watch over these people 24 hours a day, but that's what an example was on Carpenter Road. You were going to provide a homeless environment, and each one of those parking spots was going to amount to about $4,100 per month for people to park their motor home there because it's under a element of a watch from a nonprofit. Let's take the profit out of it. Let's make it so that the people that are down on their luck can get some help from some local people without making the people into criminals. And let's make a real ordinance rather than something that, once again, is going to go a full cycle of it doesn't work. It's irresponsible to continue to pass ordinances you know have never worked, and there is no hope that they ever will work. Thank you.
Thank you. That is all I had signed up on my list, but is there anyone in the boardroom that would like to testify? No? Okay. Anyone via Zoom?
I only have staff unless Keely Murno would like to provide testimony this afternoon. Keely?
Thank you, Commissioners. I am just here to listen.
Thank you. So that will conclude public testimony, Madam Chair.
Thank you. With that, is there any questions, comments? Commissioner Edwards, we'll start with you.
No, I don't think so. I think we've covered this quite a few times over the years. Thank you.
Commissioner Menzer? Okay. With that, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Is your mic?
Do you have the microphone on?
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
No more discussion from me, ma'am.
I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Menzer?
Aye.
Commissioner Mejia?
Aye. Motion passes. And is there a motion to approve an interim ordinance, or is there any discussion you would like to have before we move towards that?
I believe I've been consistent all along on my concerns, and I don't think I need any further discussion at this point.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Menzer?
No, I don't need any discussion.
Okay. I'm ready for a motion.
I move to approve interim ordinance renewing ordinance 15792 as previously amended to extend interim regulations related to emergency housing for homeless encampments in unincorporated rural and urban growth areas of Thurston County for the term of June 9, 2022 to December 9, 2022.
I'll second. Any discussion?
No, ma'am.
I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Edwards?
Nay.
Commissioner Menzer?
Aye.
Commissioner Mejia?
Aye. Thank you, Leah. With that,
Thank you.
we will be adjourning this meeting, and we will be heading back to the Board of County Commissioners meeting in a different Zoom room.